and it's an ordinary miracle. It happens every day. She heals us when we ask her. He answers when we pray. It comes from all around us. It comes from up above. What else were you expecting from a God who's made of love? What else were you expecting from a God who's made of love? Thank you.
Lissy, I love that song. Good morning, everyone. It's just amazing and wonderful for me to look out and see all of you here on Sundays and just feel the connection and the energy and the vibration of you and your consciousness and our coming together. There's a power in that. And today we're going to talk about that power and the power of the mastermind. I came across this saying from Roscoe Drummond. He says, "The mind is a wonderful thing. It starts working the minute you are born and never stops until you get up to public speak." And that's not unusual. Sometimes the mind just kind of goes to sleep when you get up to try and speak, and you kind of have to train yourself to get past that. Helps to have notes as well, so that's good. It's a marvelous thing when we do come together. And the mind, I want to read to you or quote a poem, one of my favorite poems that has really been something that has been powerful for me my whole life. And it was given to me in a book from my father back when I was probably, I don't know, I was in high school, I think. And the book is called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And the poem goes like this: "Mind is the master power that molds and makes, and man is mind. And evermore he takes the tool of thought and shaping what he wills, brings forth 1,000 joys or 1,000 ills. He thinks in secret, and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass." To me, that speaking of the power of our minds to shape and to form and to create whatever we are seeing out here in our environment is one of the most profound and one of the most transformative awarenesses and understandings that you and I can really begin to own and begin to accept for ourselves. And as we begin to own that and accept it for ourselves, we find that we become empowered to be free, to be strong, to be clear, to be whole. And I'm convinced that our journey, a spiritual journey, is ultimately a journey toward our experiencing and expressing ever more wholeness and completeness of who and what you and I are created to be. These unique, amazing, and beautiful spiritual beings that we are created in the likeness of the divine. And so our unfolding takes place and doesn't take place. It takes place within our own awareness and our own consciousness, and yet it also does not take place in a vacuum. The reality is you and I are meant to be connected. And when we are connected, we are able to see and experience more of the reality and the truth of who and what you and I are. And when we are disconnected, when we feel separate, we're actually putting up walls and barriers ourselves so that we are somehow trying to protect who we think we are rather than express who we truly are. Let me say that again, because that's a powerful understanding. When we are doing anything that tends to separate us from each other, we are actually creating barriers ourselves to keep us in a prison of who we think we are. And by the very act of doing that, we are blocking ourselves from stepping outside of that who we think we are and becoming more of our true nature, who we truly are, our divine spirit nature, or the Christ as we call it in unity. And so our work is really to unfold. Thank you. The dictionary defines mind as the spirit of consciousness, and divine spirit as that which constitutes one's unseen, intangible being, or the animating force in living beings. And in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, Charles Fillmore says this. He defines spirit as God, as the moving force in the universe, and spirit as the breath of life in all creation, and the principle of creative intelligence of that life. And sometimes you and I discover a moment from time to time where something comes through us and we're in a flow of thought that doesn't come from us. You understand what I'm talking about? There are times when we are in tune with an awareness and an understanding that is beyond our own limited intellectual concepts and belief systems and ideas. And there are times when there's something that comes through that is more than we possibly could have imagined or thought of for ourselves and perhaps for our experiences and for our circumstances in life. And when we are able to tap into that and tune into that, amazing things can happen. And when we are willing to listen to that part of ourselves that has a higher knowing, a higher understanding, that higher mind, as we like to say, there is an intelligence that comes through and can come through in ways that we don't experience in our ordinary everyday thinking and life. And one of the keys to actually being able to do that is being able to be a part of a collective of people who are of like harmony, in harmony and of like consciousness, and are lifting each other up into a higher understanding and experience of who and what we are. So the purpose of our lessons are to understand, first of all, one, the nature of this mind that we're talking about here, the mastermind. There really is ultimately, I know this may seem strange to some of you, but there's no such thing as my mind and your mind. Ultimately, there really is only mind. And all that we see and believe to be my mind and your mind is really a conception of who and what we are. But ultimately, there's only one mind, and that is the mind of the divine. This is one of the key ideas and teachings of Charles Fillmore, that we really are all a part of a unified mind. And that one mind is something that is, our individual minds, you might say, are somewhat porous to other awarenesses and understandings. Now, Charles Fillmore also talked about our being a part of what is called race consciousness. Now, race consciousness is basically the everyday kind of thinking of humankind. It is a collective kind of understanding and perception and belief system. It is a way that we have agreed that the world is. And when we get caught into a belief system of how the world is, that's how the world shows up for us. And we create more experiences about how the world is because we have tapped into and tuned into what everyone else believes. And so therefore we are holding those kind of beliefs as well, and we are then generating and creating other experiences in our life that reflect that understanding and that belief system. Jesus was one who basically escaped race consciousness. He transcended it. He did not buy into an understanding of what his limits were. He did not buy into his the world's understanding of what human possibilities are. He saw and understood that the things that are possible, that he was one with the Father and one with the divine, and therefore had the same capability and awareness that the Father had. And so he used that term Father to describe this one mind, this one source of all awareness, of all intelligence, of all life, of all creation. And in the very act of doing that, he aligned himself with an understanding and awareness that was beyond the race consciousness of what a human being is. And he saw himself beyond the limiting belief systems that were prevalent, not only in that time, but are prevalent today. And what he did then was he began to form a group of people who were open to the possibility, that there was something more that was possible. And he drew to him 12 disciples. And he invited John, and they invited some others, and he found that there were 12. Now these 12 represent things within ourselves individually, but he performed his first miracle after first forming a mastermind group. And that's what the disciples basically were. It was a mastermind group. It was a group of people who came together in like mind, in like harmony, to bring about a greater experience and awareness of heaven on earth. They had a definite idea, a definite purpose. And the definite idea and purpose was to bring about a greater knowing of the human possibility and the miraculous possibilities of what you and I are created to be. And Jesus, after forming this mastermind, one of the first miracles he performed, I talked about this a little bit last week, was the miracle of turning the water into wine at the wedding in Canaan. And there's a marriage that happens. The wedding represents a marriage of a coming together of our thinking and our feeling nature. And our thinking and feeling nature has to come together in a collective awareness so that we can then transform our own consciousness from the race consciousness into a higher energy, a higher vibration of awareness and thinking. To begin to see things from a different perception and to see things from a different possibility. To be able to take in input that is beyond our limited way of understanding. The water basically represents our everyday run-of-the-mill kind of thinking, and that eventually, when we try to that's going to run out, right? Just like it did at the wedding. And everybody gets bummed. There's no more wine. There's no more wine. When we're coming from that place of limited intellectual kind of understanding, our own energy is going to run out. When we're trying to do something in our life and make a change, when we're trying to live beyond what we have previously seen ourselves to be, and we try to do that from a place of our own limited concept, the energy is going to run out. And so part of the work of the miracle work of the mastermind is to help us to move beyond our own limited awareness and thinking so that we can tap into resources and understanding and knowledge and insight that is beyond our own individual awareness and consciousness. And so when we come together in a like-mindedness and focus our energy and attention on a particular desire or a goal or something that we choose to experience more of in our life to transform both our inner life as well as our outer life, there's a great power in that. There's a great power in coming together. We come together here on Sunday morning not just to receive, but we come here also to collectively give to each other and to hold each other up into a greater experience of the possibilities of what we are truly here to show and to be and to express in our lives. Are you aware that good response. Are you aware that you're a genius? That you have within you absolute genius. Just like Einstein or anyone else, that you have the same connection to that divine awareness and divine intelligence that one like Einstein had. He said basically that any discovery that he made, any insight that he had really had nothing to do with his intellect. That almost every innovation that he presented, every theory that came to him, basically came to him through a practice of tuning into and connecting with other minds and others who shared these kinds of ideas so that they actually shared their consciousness with each other. And so a big part of our understanding and work is to recognize that all the things that are going on in our life today, if we try to do and try to fix all of the problems that we are dealing with in life without opening ourselves up to greater possibilities of others who can actually be there with us and help us to move into a higher understanding and to see things from a different perspective, we're basically living a lower level of life. That we're here to really lift each other up and to be lifted up by others. And the genius that you have is, the word genius actually, it's not something that originates in our human identity. It comes through us, through our spiritual identity. It actually comes from the same root word as the word genie. Did you know that? That you have a genie. Every one of you. A genie is another word. Genie is a gen, and it is a spirit that is there to give you not just 3 wishes. You don't have to rub a bottle to get it to come forward. But if you tap into the energy that is coming together of like heart and mind, and focus your attention on a particular place where you maybe feel like there's some overcoming that needs to happen, it will open up for you other resources that you may not have been able to comprehend or have not been able to come to you or through you through your own consciousness. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe that we can meditate on things and we can get amazing insights, but think about it this way. How many of you, if you had a pencil, think you could take a pencil and break a pencil? How many of you think you could do that? Anybody? Maybe it's a small pencil. Think about it. Maybe half the size of a usual pencil. You could probably break that, couldn't you? So let me ask you, if you had 4 pencils, even half-size pencils, do you think you could break that? Let's say you had 5 pencils put together in a bundle. Do you think you could break them? Let's say you had 10 pencils put together in a bundle. Do you think you could break that? Probably not. This is one of the powers of the mastermind, that we put our strengths together and our consciousness together and our hearts together and our minds together to focus on something that we want to experience more of in life. It amplifies those strengths. It enhances those awarenesses. It increases the creative juices. It absolutely allows us to really tune into a greater possibility of who and what you and I are and what we have come here to do and to be. I think one of the great examples also of this is, how many of you have ever seen a laser cut through metal? Seen maybe pictures of it or videos of it? Have you seen a video or you've heard about, or I'm sure read about, how a laser actually can cut through metal? And what a laser really is simply light. It's just light. But the difference between the laser and the lights that you see here in this room is it is light that is all focused in the same direction, and the particles of that light are all moving in the same coherent and congruent direction together. And the very possibility of that makes it possible for a laser to go thousands of miles beyond our own awareness and vision of it, and even cut through some of the strongest substances that we're aware of. This is the power also of the mastermind. When you collectively bring beams of light together and bring them together in such a way that they're all moving and all the particles are moving in the same way and they're flowing together, it's amazing. It's amazing what can be accomplished. That's true of our consciousness. That's true of our minds. And so it's important for us to really begin to pay attention to this understanding that we are part of a collective. In the next lesson, next Sunday, I'm going to also give you some ways of establishing and maintaining the kinds of relationships that you'll be able to tune into in such a way that will allow you to focus your awareness and your mind to begin to create amazing things that are beyond your own conception of what's possible. You see, the conscious mind, the one that we mostly walked in here with, the conscious mind is pretty much focused on just what's right here in front of us, and it is it's really focused on helping us to kind of navigate and deal with circumstances in the world. And you don't usually have to use the conscious mind to put one foot in front of the other unless you've had some challenges putting one foot in front of the other. And there are times when you have to consciously think about, pick this foot up, put it down. But most of the time, we don't even bother to think about that. And so there's some level of our mind that is at work that is beyond our conscious level of mind. But even beyond that, there's a level of our mind that is breathing us, that is, in a real sense, you might say, there's a part of the one mind that is thinking you right now. And the way it is thinking you is way, way, way beyond what you are thinking with your conscious mind. It is something more amazing and magnificent, and it is so genius. It is amazing, and yet we are limited in so many ways by what we have been able and willing to accept about ourselves. And so one of the things that I've kind of learned over the years is that I can believe something for you that you may not have ever been able to believe for yourself, and vice versa. You can believe something for me that I may not ever have been able to believe for myself because I'm caught up in my own awareness and my own thoughts and my own belief systems and my own download of raised consciousness that I've bought into. And yet there are people in my life, and I'm grateful for, who've been able to see beyond my own limited beliefs and thinking. And this is one of the great powers of the mastermind, is surrounding yourself with people who will hold an awareness and a vision for you that is beyond your own ability to believe and accept for yourself. Would you like to have that in your life? How many of you have been in a mastermind group? I think quite a few. How many are currently in a mastermind group? How many of you like to be in a mastermind group? So we're going to look at what it takes to really form a kind of mastermind group that will allow you to stop focusing on and limiting yourself and your current belief systems, to allow you to move into a possibility that may even seem miraculous. You know, a miracle is not something that's unnatural. A miracle is something that is very natural, but it is supernatural. It is natural to that part of our connection with that divine mind, and we can experience miracles that will absolutely shake up your conscious way of living. And by shaking up your conscious way of living, you begin to live into a greater possibility. You begin to live into a life that is governed not by race consciousness, not by the everyday agreements that we've made about how the world is and how it's supposed to be and how and what we think it is, but it's governed by a higher governance. It's governed by a principle and a law that is on a higher level and order of being. And you begin to align yourself with that higher order and level of being by surrounding yourself with those who are also open to and willing to strive in such a way that they are allowing this higher order of principle and law to work in their life. So next week we're going to talk more about how do we do that? How do we create this connection with this higher order of mind, this higher order of thinking, this higher order of consciousness? That'll get you back next week, right? All right, let's move into our meditation time. And as you breathe in a knowing that you are now one with the one heart and the one mind of Spirit. This which you have thought of as your own mind is an awareness of a self-identity, a belief system, and is one that can be expanded and transformed into a knowing of connection and harmony and possibility with other minds that are part of that one mind as well. And just be open to seeing yourself drawing to you those of like heart and mind that are committed to escaping the everyday limitations of race consciousness and expressing more fully the wholeness, the possibility of each and every one individually. Feel in your heart that you are now already connected with 4, 5, 6 individual minds that are there to lift up and to be lifted up. To be transformed and to share the insights and awareness of Spirit in such a way that each one benefits and grows in all areas of life. And just give thanks that you have made that spiritual connection now with your mastermind group. And they are now, even now, seeking you as you are seeking them. And see yourself now already connected to them, already joined and holding a greater awareness of each one's possibility, of each one's truth, of each one's wholeness. And give thanks that this is so. And so it is. Take a nice deep breath. Breathe now into the heart space. Then begin to allow that heart energy to radiate outward. And knowing that it is now touching each and every one that you are divinely appointed and connected with. And so it is. Amen.